Hey guys, welcome to Oddcast, a Four Nerds by Nerds show. Today you're joined by myself, Joe, CN, and Paige, and we wanted to discuss a nerdy topic that's important to us, which is, of course, video games. But before we get into our topic at hand, we'd like to give you this opportunity to go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe and hit the little bell for notifications. So when we say video games, what we're talking about is we live in a world now where there are video games for everything that you could potentially want to do. However, sometimes IP from the past deserves to be brushed off and brought back into the present.
And it never gets the recognition to be current.
Correct. We live in the golden age of remakes. So we have obviously Mass Effect getting a remake later this year. We have Final Fantasy VII remake. We have Resident Evil 2 and 3, and the list goes on and on. So here are some IPs from the past that we think should be brought into the future. And if we were to bring them to modern day standards, what we think they might look like. So I'm going to start us off. Here's an old one from back in the PlayStation days, and that game is Alundra. Now, it is a JRPG in which you are a dream walker. So I think that for the most part, you can keep most of those same story elements, those same beats. What made the game so interesting is that you live kind of like the normal JRPG style, except it was heavy platforming and puzzle when you went into people's brains to solve their issues while they were asleep. I think that game would be a lot of fun to do now. However, once you enter into the dream state, I think that it would be great to switch it to a control style game. So you go from like your traditional looking game, and then you enter into somebody's mind, and then just like that, you're taken into like kind of the fanciful, over the top. You can fly around, you could do stuff, and then it's platforming and problem solving in the style and vein of Control.
That's actually a good one, to be honest. There's one that I would choose, and some of you may remember this game, some of you may not, but this one is the Legacy of Kain series, as far as, what was that, PlayStation 1?
Yeah, PlayStation 1.
Yeah, it's Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain. Technically, you play a vampire, and you were pretty much, you weren't abandoned, but you were pretty much ousted by your lord. And pretty much it's a revenge story. And the platform is very similar to like the old school Tomb Raider games. You take, instead of blood, you take in souls to gain power. It was revolutionary at its time. They only had that one game, and they didn't do another one. And
2.
Oh, yes, right. They did do 2.
There's a sequel.
They did do 2.
Yeah, but continue.
But but basically, the game needs a complete refresh, a complete reboot. I think it'd be fantastic. I think people nowadays, especially with horror games being at its peak, it could totally work very similar to like Bloodborne. If I was to think about it, it'll work well if it was kind of like Bloodborne. But yeah, mine would be Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain.
Alrighty.
And I guess my first one would have to be KOTOR, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, that was originally on the original Xbox.
Yeah.
It was so fun. What I loved most about it was one of the first games that you got to choose whether you went evil or good, as well as you could choose kind of your path if you went more bounty hunter, or you go Jedi, and you get to have all these side quests and discover more of the Old Republic of Star Wars, which is obviously my favorite part of the Star Wars universe, is the Old Republic. I want those movies so much. But I think, especially with, because I think it came out a year before Fable, which Fable is kind of touted as one of the first ones where you get to choose evil. Well, it was more popular across the genres because not everybody played Star Wars stuff. But KOTOR really delved really deep into the Star Wars universe, and I feel like, well, if EA can take their hands off of Star Wars video game IPs, I feel like it might have a chance.
Which but maybe doing.
Yes, so I feel like it would be more in the vein of kind of how Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls series has gone so far. I don't want an MMO. There already is an MMO. Hard pass on the MMOs. No offense, guys, but I don't like playing with others. I want my solo RPG. But because of how Elder Scrolls has evolved, I feel like they could really do that with the sci-fi genre, using KOTOR. Because it was such a solid game. Almost everyone who's played any Star Wars game, almost everyone's played KOTOR. It is probably the biggest. Well, in my opinion, it was the biggest one, and I really feel like it should be brought into the next generation.
I agree with that.
I would also have to agree with that.
Absolutely. So keeping the same vein, apparently JRPGs are what we're striving to bring into the modern generation. I'm going to go with one of my favorite series, which actually continued all the way through until the PlayStation 3, and that is Suikoden. So in Suikoden, you follow the 108 Stars of Destiny. So there are 108 different team members that you can recruit, and it is done very much in the style of it's an old school RPG. In the first game, you follow, there are 32 Elder Runes, and you follow them, and your main character wields the Soul Eater rune, and it is just fantastic. And I think that all the story elements and the beats, you keep them the same, but you bring Suikoden into our present, our modern system. I would do it almost in like a weird kind of cross fashion. I would cross the most recent Star Oceans, because in that you go on the map, but I would do that as well as Rogue Galaxies. So kind of like a hybrid of those two games, but obviously with an updated engine for graphics. And I think that Suikoden would be just this amazing game. You can use the runes for problem solving throughout the world, and then obviously taking pages out of all the JRPGs, you go back and forth between the areas to solve puzzles that you couldn't solve in that initial setup phase. But it's such a fantastic game that I would love to see it brought into our current generation using those standards of play.
That is actually a good one. I'm going to step away from our JRPGs for a second. I'm going to go with my next pick, which is Tenchu. Now, those of you that remember Tenchu, Wrath of the Assassin, fantastic game. It was very similar, a little similar to the old Onimusha games back in the day, but it was very action-packed. I think it was one of the first few ninja games that actually had stealth, was definitely a big factor, and of course they had blood. I think that game would go very well if they kind of hybridize like the current Ninja Gaiden series with a little bit of Metal Gear Solid Rise of Raiden, and maybe throw in a little bit of
so kind of like in a semi-solid open world, so almost along like you have mini mission maps like what a Hitman would have. Yeah,
I think you definitely should have that. I mean, especially since it takes place in feudal Japan, and you have to have your daimyo. They give you your missions, and it was fantastic. And bringing that current with current technology, I think it'll kill, especially since Ghost of Tsushima is big. I think that would be dope, actually.
So my next one, I'm gonna bring it back to JRPGs, and I'm gonna go with Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross.
Nice.
So Chrono Trigger, God, it's such a good game from the PS1. Granted, I played it on my PSP, but God, the story is so deep, and like you go back and forth between different times, picking up different characters, and I'm still good with the turn-based. If you want to, as I actually like turn-based combat games, so you don't even have to change the combat really. I wanted updated graphics. I wanted you can maybe add some crafting elements in there between the different time periods, because you're still in the same world but bouncing back between all these different times. And the maps in Chrono Trigger were so intense, and the story is just so good. I really feel like with how popular JRPGs are, and how much recognition they've been getting in the past few years, I feel like it deserves to be on that list. I'm surprised by the amount of people who don't know what Chrono Trigger is and Chrono Cross. Like, it boggles my brain if you've ever heard of JRPGs and you don't know Chrono Trigger. But it definitely deserves to be on that list.
And I agree with that. And I think that it would be so interesting to see a crafting aspect added to that game. Because could you imagine, now bear with me here, you plant a tree in the past and then you time travel to the future and the tree is grown and then you get like whatever that'd just be awesome. All right.
That's what I'm saying.
I dig that. So I'm going to once again take it out of JRPGs and bring it back to a different one. And this one's going to sound really weird to a lot of people, and that is because I am looking at you, one of my favorite characters, the Blue Bomber himself, Mega Man. I think that Mega Man is an excellent game. All of them. Mega Man's 1 through 9, Mega Man 10 through 10, whatever their number is. All of them. I even loved the Mega Man Legends games.
Nope.
And 3 was on its way, and then it got shelved. But that's a different topic for another time. But I think that the opportunity here is that you can take him out of that same kind of environment and give him a different type of platform, and I think that it would work really well. And I think that the format I would love to see the Blue Bomber take is Ratchet and Clank style gameplay. You're in an open world. You have a selection of his different blasters as you defeat different enemies so that you can upgrade things. You get to move around. You go from place to place or board to board.
Right.
I just think that it'd be a lot of fun, and I think that that would keep the audience engaged. And you wouldn't have to necessarily come up with new villains. You can kind of pick and choose your favorite 10 and then just put them in there as the worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they can't do that. I mean, they have plenty of villains that kind of.
And then you replace Dr. Nefarious with Dr. Wily, and just like that, boom, you're off. You are off to the races.
That's actually a good one. That's really good. My next choice is very similar to Joe's number 1, I think, or number 2 actually. It's actually a Xenogears. It's actually part of the Xeno saga, which is very vast, but they never went back to Xenogears. And trying to take that game, that the way the story took place. And what's funny was that the story didn't even match the other Xenosaga games. Like, it was kind of its own thing, and that's why I think it's unique. But if they brought it back current, I don't know, what do you think? You played Xenogears?
What is it, Titanfall? Isn't that the one where you have the giant mech suit that you're on the ground and then you hop into it? I would totally play a Xenogears style game where it's like that. Like, you're on the ground.
Game,
yeah, like you're on the ground and then, there's my boom, and then you get into your giant robot. That was my favorite part of Xenogears, and it always upset me that they never brought back the giant mechs.
Yeah, like, it's just, like I said, it was kind of like its own game, and I thought it was unique in that aspect. So bringing that back, I think that would give me all the giggles.
All of the giggles. So my next one probably is not going to be much of a surprise. It's another JRPG, and
what?
I know. And honestly, no shame, Final Fantasy VIII. I know it's not everyone's favorite Final Fantasy game. Honestly, most people hate it the most out of all of the Final Fantasies. It's people's least favorite, but I don't care. It was my first Final Fantasy. I love that story. That story is so freaking good. And honestly, I liked the draw system of Magic, even though it was so different from all the other ones.
Didn't mind that at all, actually.
I just thought it added an extra layer dynamic to the game, as well as the card game, which I know Joe loves.
Yep. That's part of the game.
I liked it too. It was so different from all the other Final Fantasies, and especially from Final Fantasy VII. I feel like it deserves its own remake, like Final Fantasy VII got.
Yeah,
excellent. I agree.
I agree with you. That 8 was definitely one of those games that definitely was a good follow up to 7, and unfortunately,
people just hate the love story. Like, it was such a good love story. I mean, y'all hate on the love story, but I mean, tell me a single thing.
I didn't mind the love story.
Love stories are everywhere. Just suck it up, play this awesome game.
But yeah, I unfortunately beat the game, but that's
And then finally rounding out our list of 10, at least the first 10 games that we would love to see brought into the next generation. And this one is near and dear, especially to Cian and I, and that is Onimusha, which he made reference to earlier. So Capcom has been kind of on this remake kick, but Onimusha is like that gem, that diamond in the rough that, like, why hasn't this been remade? They re-released the original one and it, like, sold a whole bunch, so they know that it's popular, but I would love to see an Onimusha game set in an open world environment. Similar to Ghost of Tsushima, mixed with Horizon Zero Dawn kind of thing. Even mixed in a little bit of, like, Kenshi, Shadows Never Die, or whatever.
That'd be kind of
cool. So you have, like, big bosses roaming around the map as the Oni army invades, And then, of course, you have to slay demons and take their souls so that you can power up your weapons.
Gotta still have the gauntlet.
Yeah, and I think that doing a Horizon-style thing where, like, different demons have different types of souls, different types of drops, and you have to gather that loot in order to craft better weapons and material and fight the hordes, and then having an ultimate form like in God of War so that you can summon the power of the Onimusha and then fight it. I just think that that would be amazing. So Capcom, if you're listening, which I really hope you are, please, I will pay you to play this game. Like, that's really what I want.
Take my money. Just wait.
Yeah, just shut up and take my money. As a matter of fact, if any of the companies on this list have heard our ideas and say, that's a good idea, and you make it, we don't want credit for it. We just want to play the game.
Yeah, I just want my hands. I just want my hands on a controller, just playing it. That's what I want.
So guys, that's it. That's our 10. That's our first 10 picks for games that we think were abandoned in the previous generations and need to be brought forward. Go ahead and hit that notification bell and check it out, because I'm sure we'll have more lists in the future. Otherwise, you have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching Oddcast, a For Nerds by Nerds show.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Stay safe out there.